Outside of quarterback Damon Williams Jr., Washington's offensive line has been one of the most talked about components of this football team for the last 2 seasons. Last year, it was a lack of depth and player experience and even player availability in the offseason, but this year it's a totally different looking unit, a lot more experience, a lot more depth. 18 guys were dressed this spring for practice. And because of that, not only was the offense able to increase its reps over 2 fields of practice, but we were able to see so many different combinations of players up front to help inform what could be a starting 5 offensive line this fall for Washington. So I went back through my notes from spring practice and put together this group of 5 offensive linemen, the primary starting group that ran with the ones for the majority of spring practice. From left to right, that is Carver Willis at left tackle, Paki Finau at left guard, Landon Hatchett is the center, next to him at right guard, his brother Garen Hatchett, and then Drew Azzopardi at right tackle. In total, this group of 5 linemen returns 2,241 total snaps from last year alone, and a career total of 3,660 total snaps between this group. Most importantly, the tackle positions, Carver Willis and Drew Azzopardi, each return over 1,200 career snaps. Safe to say this will be a much more veteran and experienced group compared to what the Huskies had up front last season. But I mentioned some rotations within this group, and at right guard, Zach Henning spent a lot of time there at the beginning of spring, number 58. And another really important rotation that happened a lot this spring was true freshmen at the guard spots with the starting 5. That's highlighted in yellow. Number 72, John Mills. Number 73, Champ Talea played a lot of reps with the first team in April. And according to the coaching staff, these true freshmen will play this fall. Here's Jed Fish talking about how he plans to utilize those guys up front.
Yeah, I would expect that the freshmen will have freshman offensive linemen playing. When we were at Arizona, Jonah Coleman was a freshman All-American lineman. Then the next year, Wendell Moe was a freshman All-American lineman. I expect one of the freshmen, if not 2, to be a significant contributor or starter. That's what we do. We believe in that. We're going to play the best 5, and if one of those guys are it, they'll play.
In addition to being out there at the same time, the coaching staff also rotated the freshmen at guard individually. Here it's Champ Talea at right guard with the starters and John Mills at left guard with the starters. We saw both of those combinations this spring. Offensive line coach Michael Switzer also talked about how he wants to use those true freshmen.
Yeah, I wanted to see what they could do. To sit here and go through spring ball, and I've had discussions with a lot of guys in the room about this. I'm going to give those guys a shot. The size and the power and the strength that those guys have naturally, being that big, I got to see if it's translatable to this level. Both those guys have done some really nice things and shown some flashes of some really good play. It's just about consistency with those young guys in terms of understanding you can't just have a good play here, a good play there. It's got to be consistently good throughout. But those guys and the physicality that they bring into the room is something different than maybe what we've had. So I want to see what those guys can do early on, and they're still getting some reps here and there with the ones, which is good just to mix it up.
And as you go down the depth chart, there were a lot of different combinations, but this was probably the most utilized second string group that we saw this spring. You still have those true freshmen at the guard spots. At left tackle, it was Swane Fasolo. At center, Zach Henning, and then Max McCree out at right tackle. And this list is not a complete depth chart. It is in no particular order. It's just a group of players that I saw rotating primarily with the second string offensive line behind the probable starters in white. You can see at tackle, Max McCree and Swane Fasolo did rotate sides once or twice with the second team at tackle. And true freshman John Mills did get some reps at left tackle with what I would consider the second team offense. You can see not a ton of rotation at the 2 guard spots. It seems the coaching staff kind of knows who's going to be competing for the first and second string spots there. And at center, you can see a lot of names here. That's because these are all the players that I made note of practicing quarterback center exchanges throughout the spring. Kansas State transfer offensive lineman Carver Willis was one of the most significant offseason acquisitions in the transfer portal for Washington, an experienced starter at right tackle for Kansas State, but he's playing left tackle here at Washington. Here's Michael Switzer talking about that transition.
Our offense and what we do in terms of run actions, specific to game planning, being that open side tackle, I think he's an elite protector. He's going through it in terms of changing from right to left. That is a big change in terms of switching it all, but he's going through his process and he's getting better. But him as a protector on the left side was important to me, and we'll see how that progresses.
Switzer also talks about the progression of right tackle Drew Azzopardi, who going into 2025 returns the most snaps from the 2024 season among this starting group of offensive line. He had 852 snaps a season ago.
Just his ability to be aggressive and go get it and strain. He was in position to make a lot of his plays last year, but it's just like finishing that play. And that's the mindset and mentality of the whole offensive line. We're trying to have that attacking philosophy. So that's where I've seen it. His pass protection has improved, which he struggled with at times, as all our guys did. But I think he's done a nice job of attacking offseason prior to spring ball, and then throughout spring ball he's done a nice job.
Between Azzopardi and Willis, over 2,500 returning collegiate snaps at the tackle spots for this Washington offense is significant. Protection was an issue a season ago at Washington. 39 sacks allowed in 2024. That was 8th most in college football. Now, of course, not all of that was because of the tackle position, but in 2025, I expect to see a significantly improved protection up front, in large part because of those two guys on the outside at the tackle spots. But the improvements we've seen from this offensive line go beyond just depth and experience. This group is physically bigger than they were a year ago, and as a result, more physical at the point of attack. During the team periods and scrimmages this spring, we saw the offensive line generate really solid push for the run game and also provide quality protection for the pass game. Running back Jonah Coleman talked about some of the changes he's seen in that regard from his position this spring.
Just more physicality, more dirtiness, more the willing to want to block, to want to be physical, to want to not be liked. And I think that's something that they've been carrying in the spring, having that chip on their shoulders of, obviously what happened last year, just wanting to be the more physical team at the end of the day. And that's just something that they embodied, the way they work all season, the way they, been together, hanging around, having fun and stuff like that, and just connecting with one another. And everyone has to be on the same page, when it comes to being up front. That's the most important part of it all. You got to get the play started, So they've just been doing a good job of that.
And earlier in the spring, offensive coordinator Jimmie Dougherty talked about offensive line coach Michael Switzer and how seamless the transition was for him to come in as that position coach.
We're so comfortable with Switz. He's been around us so much. He's been with us since the 22 season at Arizona, and even before that. He was with us in Michigan in 2016. So very, very comfortable with Switz. He knows this system inside and out. Been a very easy transition in terms of that. Of course, I miss PC. I love him. But yeah, Switz is doing a great job. He's doing a great job with those guys.
Of course, the competition will continue into the fall. None of this is set in stone in terms of a starting offensive line, but I think a really good look at what we can expect to see from the group this fall at Washington. As always, let me know what other position groups or players you'd like to see video breakdowns on as we move towards the 2025 Husky regular season.